Hi, everybody. It's time for another week ahead forecast beginning Sunday, July the 27th. And forgive me if I'm a little bit all over the place when I do it, but my software is still a little bit wonky, especially with the reports of the transits that I usually use. So I've got a couple of places open to try and make sure I don't miss anything. But so let's take you through all the aspects. But first, I want to thank everybody that's pre-ordered my books so far. Signed prints are still available at sacredthreadsimprint.com, and the book is not published till August the 12th. And so I had to put the price up a little bit for signed pre-orders because I vastly underestimated shipping and packaging and time and all those things. However, that's okay. I want to get this book out in the world. So the 150-ish pre-orders we've received so far are, going out. I've figured out all how the shipping. I've had to figure out how to print the labels on shipping labels on one of those shipping label sizes. Oh, I love learning new things though, so it's all good. So anyway, I did pull three cards for the week. But first, I want to say Happy New Moon. I'm recording this on the 24th. So this report is for the week beginning the 27th of July. So these cards are for that week ahead. But today I'm recording this under the Leo new moon, which is a powerful, powerful new moon. And I did do a video on this YouTube channel for that too. Anyway, the cards I pulled, and I'll do a full reading at the end, are Priestess of Cups. These are the Red Threads Tarot, which I'm a bit obsessed with. And then Four of Threads and Goddess of Cups. And I can tell you they're all beautiful cards. So it's kind of a little bit of a more comfortable week, shall I say, but we are in interesting times, right? So stick around for the full reading of I'm just looking for my software. There it is. Full reading of the cards at the end, and let me get up my software, as wonky as it is. Oh, I'm a little bit annoyed because, of course, I kind of mentioned that, I report that things are wonky and they kind of blame me. And I've already uninstalled and reinstalled the software once, which means that all my settings reset and anyway, never mind. So I think I've got all the extras I want on here. But anyway, we'll be under the waxing moon for the week, which is, more action oriented, more getting out there. So I hope you've set your powerful intentions for this week ahead, because there's a lot of action in there. So anyway, let me share my software now. Sorry about this, but honestly, it's kind of difficult working with software that's kind of not working very well. Here we go. So here we are on Sunday the 27th. We begin the week, as you can probably see, with the moon over here in Virgo. So the Virgo is the sign after Leo. So the sun is still in Leo, close to this degree of today's new moon, which is at 2 degrees of Leo. The sun has passed the origin of Pluto, but is still within orb, and the sun is still within orb of a fire trine to Neptune and Saturn. Black Moon Lilith, I use the true calculation, has whizzed back into Scorpio. I use the osculating Black Moon Lilith because that seems to fit her nature more. But the Black Moon Lilith was connected to today's new moon as well. So anyway, that's just to kind of lay the scene. We've also moved beyond last week's conjunction between Mars and the South Node, which there were quite a lot of dire predictions about that. And whilst the world's in chaos, I've not really kind of seen these dire predictions coming true. But, you know, each to their own. I prefer not to do that kind of thing. I prefer to try and give you a forecast about the energies and suggestions about how to work with the energies. All right. So to quote the wonderful Stephen Forrest, predictions are a funny thing. I can't remember his exact words. You hear about when they were right. And I've seen very few exact predictions. Nick Dagan Best is probably one of the few that has done really good predictions of all kinds. Anyway, 27th, the moon is in Virgo all day. I'm not going to go through all the lunar aspects. I do write about those daily on my Substack blog, so please go over there. Those posts are free. I do have a paid membership subscription, but that has other offerings. Venus, though, is in Gemini, so that's a very mercurial sign to go with the moon in the sign of Virgo. And today, the Venus in Gemini makes an aspect of opportunity, a sextile, to Eris in Aries, more fire and air. We've got a lot of fire and air coming and going at the moment, especially with the sun in fire sign Leo. Now, Eris is the table turner, the kind of shit stirrer. You know, she really stirs things up and really kind of shakes tables and things. And so Venus in the sign of Gemini, in the sign of relationship and community, and Venus representing both our relationships and our relationship to the physical world. This could shake and stir things up a bit, but because it's an opportunity aspect, this is kind of giving you an opportunity to shake things up, shaken, not stirred, shall we say, to quote James Bond. So then the other main aspect for this day is Mercury. Over here, retrograde in the sign of Leo, with the Sun and Mercury heading towards a cazimi, will square off to Vesta. Vesta, the sacred flame of commitment and focus and devotion. And in these fixed signs, with Mercury retrograde, this is asking you to really tune in to what you are committed to because Mercury retrograde is reviewing and reflecting on all of these matters. Okay, so let me check in with this other kind of software I'm using to make sure I don't miss any major aspects. No, let's go to the 28th. I'm hoping they sort this out really soon, or I'm going to have to dig out another software I've got. Anyway, July the 28th. Okay, July the 28th. We don't have very many major aspects. Let me go down this wonky listing, but we do have Venus coming up now to make that sextile or aspect of opportunity to Chiron. And Chiron is going retrograde. So Chiron is stationed retrograde. Also, let me get that aspect really kind of as exact, because I do want to talk about this for a minute. So a bit later on the day, Venus over here in Gemini is sextile to Chiron, in Aries. Now, if I add the galactic center, which I do like to join, I do like to add in and to bring in every now and again, mainly because the galactic center really speaks to me and it's been activated a lot lately. Okay, so this aspect is activating the galactic center, new information coming in from the center of our galaxy that may help us reflect on how to heal and how to play a part in being the healing we wish to see in the world. So Venus opposing the galactic center and making a lovely wedge aspect to Chiron, which is about to station retrograde on the 30th. So Chiron is only 2 days from stationing retrograde. Now, other aspects of note on Monday the 28th are that the moon will conjunct the south node and then conjunct Mars. Now, the faster moving aspects are often activators for other aspects. And we all know that sometimes things do not happen on the day, right? Things are launched or begun. South Node in Virgo, this really is about letting go of old details and moving more towards more practical, mystical work, integrating of the quantum realms, wave and particle, if you like. And the moon going over the south node and then conjunct Mars will activate the conjunction between Mars and the south node we've just had, bringing our emotions into it also, and how we feel about where we're going, about doing the right thing or doing useful, meaningful work in the world. This is the best summation, to my mind, of how we can tune into this energy on Monday that's activating all of that. And then, of course, the moon will square Venus after that as well. So it will activate all of those kind of energies. And so this is all really speaking to each other. But the moon is saying, all right, okay, what's come up for you? Now bring it into your heart. And how do you feel about what's happening? Because the moon will start to gain light now, and then it's time to take action. Okay. So, yeah. So I've talked about all those aspects. Now let me move on to the 29th. I do wish my software would get fixed. So I'm not going to talk a lot about about all the moon aspects, but one thing I do want you to really tune into, and go and read my daily blog to remind you of this, is how every time the moon changes signs, the moon is activating these big outer planets. Oops, sorry. There we go. That are all changing signs pretty much together. So with Uranus being the last one to change signs, having moved into the sign of Gemini, for now, Uranus will move back into Taurus briefly later in the year. The moon, when the moon reaches the beginning degrees of all the signs, there's going to be activations of these planets by the moon in some way. In this case, the moon is going to make an unbroken flow air aspect to Uranus, and will also make that unbroken flow aspect to Pluto, and will oppose Neptune and Saturn in the sign of Aries. That's a lot of fire and air. This is only when the moon is in Libra I'm speaking about, but every time the moon moves to a 0 degree, it will aspect all these slow moving planets at the same time, pretty much. So you're going to feel into the big shifts and big changes in our consciousness, or big expansion of consciousness that we are going to get. All right. So I'm not going to go into those aspects every time. I will do in my blog, but this is amazing times we're in. And now we are in another waxing moon. So we're going to move from new to full, and we're going to start taking action on what we are changing. Okay, so the other aspects for the rest of the 29th are that the moon will make a first opening aspect, major aspect to to the Leo sun, which is more fire and air. We've got so much fire and air going on, it's kind of intense. But then the moon will also make a T-square to Pholus, kind of unintended consequences by one thing, chain of events, Pandora's box. What you let one thing out of the box, the lid's off, more comes out, and square Jupiter in Cancer. I think there's going to be way more information coming out about what's going on in the world, about the corruption in the world, shall we say. So, on to the 30th. Let me just check my... Okay, on to the 30th. Yep. Okay, the moon's still in Libra. The moon spends a couple of days in each sign, and the moon will oppose Ceres. Go buy my book. And this is really asking us to look in how we collectively meet our individual and collective needs, how we nurture and nourish ourselves and each other. There's more of, I could say, but I'm not going to go on and on and on. Now, later on the 30th, Chiron will turn retrograde. So, see, my software didn't even tell me that. Anyway, but it's doing it. So it's really weird. So anyway, Wednesday the 30th, Chiron stations retrograde, still aspecting that galactic center. Meanwhile, Venus spends most of that day at the very last degree of Gemini. Venus is moving really fast now. Can you see this? My software tells you she's moving really fast because she's left her retrograde. She's built up speed. She's going to gallop through the signs for a while now. And being at that anaretic degree of Gemini, Venus is going to reflect on her very short journey through Gemini and go, what relationships in the community have I been working on? Have I even had time to really think about this? Have I had time to think about my values? Have I had time to think about who I'm in important relationships with and connections? And then Venus is going to, at the very end of the day, on July the 30th, move into the sign of Cancer, all times Eastern, 11:57 p.m. in New York time. Venus actually shifts into Cancer, but it may be different time for you. But the energy is still the same for most of the day, wherever you are. And then Chiron as well is really still in aspect to Venus. Chiron is going to go retrograde and start to revisit how maybe some wounds have been opened up, and especially in the sacred masculine energy within us all, or the sacred yang energy, or whatever you want to call it, that sacred energy of action, doing, power from rather than power over. Or where are you still exerting that power over paradigm, the shadow of Aries, which can be very domineering? Or are you coming from this real knowing who you are and coming from that power within? Okay, so that's Wednesday, another big turning point. Let's move on to the 31st. You can see that Chiron is now retrograde. This is Thursday. And there's very few major aspects in the earlier part of the day, but the moon will finish its journey in Libra and move into the watery depths of Scorpio. A little bit less fire and air, because now we've got Venus in the sign of Cancer, a water sign. She quite likes being in Cancer because she can nurture her family and herself. Lots of self-care for this journey. and the moon moves into the deep waters of Scorpio. The other thing is, though, that there may be some big emotions coming up around this time. I actually do want to check one thing before I move on. I just had a thought. No, Venus is not out of bounds. That's okay. And then, though, towards the end of the day, on July the 31st, we actually have the Mercury cazimi. Now, some people say that there's only 17 minutes apart either side that separates the cazimi. Some say it's the whole degree. I tend to now, having worked with it for quite a long time and kind of felt into this energy, feel that it's a bit wider than the ancients thought. But, whatever. But look at this, the cazimi with Mercury retrograde, which means Mercury is between us and the sun. Mercury is kind of passing between us and the sun when it's retrograde. At 9 degrees of Leo, is really tuning into what this retrograde means. It's almost like a sweet spot in the middle. It's like the core of the sun in its own sign of Leo is passing down to us through this boundary crosser, through the messenger of the gods, about tuning into our heart's desires, heart and mind, Mercury together. I also happen to love that it's at 9 degrees because 9 is a very feminine or yin number of creation. It's also an ending, but it's at the very beginning of the 9 degrees. So, the divine or sacred feminine, for want of another expression, is definitely rising. People are stepping more into that, despite of what the news covers, where we just see, the manosphere and things like that, clinging on by its fingernails. Their time is coming. So let me just check my other software and make sure I'm not missing anything for that last day of July. Well, I will say that on the 31st, the moon, before it left Libra, did oppose Eris and Chiron, so it activated those. And then when the moon moves into Scorpio, it aspects Venus, okay, in Cancer. I kind of mentioned them all already. And then also aspects Uranus, Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto again, okay, before this cazimi or powerful middle of the retrograde conjunction. Yes, because that's what else it means. And then when the next day, okay, August the 1st, the moon has solidly in Scorpio. We'll pass over all of these here, and I will talk about those on my daily blogs. The moon will also square the sun and Mercury, so activating that cazimi kind of energy as well. More of the sacred goddess, feminine spirit, energy rising, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say about that date. Oh, there is one major aspect I might mention. Juno over here, who was queen of the gods in the Roman and Greek pantheons. Yeah, but anyway, I'll be telling stories of older than that. But anyway, she's our sacred contracts. She is the marriage asteroid, but she's about like the Hieros Gamos, that divine marriage of all opposites. And she is making a fixed square to the sacred justice warrior Pallas Athena in Aquarius, in the sign of the future. So that's another thing about what strategies can we bring in to create justice. It could relate to these Epstein files for the justice for all those victims, because there's a lot of them, in those files, and I don't think they've ever really received justice for what was done to them. Okay, so Pallas Square Juno, just bear with me, just making sure I don't miss anything yet again. Oh, on August the 4th as well, before that square, we do have the first quarter moon. I think my software missed that one completely. So moon square the sun. I did mention that the moon will activate that cazimi, but I didn't mention it's on the first quarter, crisis, crossroads, in action phase. Fixed signs. This is about what are you making manifest? What are you really fixing into place? Okay. So that's another powerful one for you on August the 1st. Oh, and there is another one I missed. Oh, that's because it's way down there. Venus, then, I'm not going to move the chart, will come up and will square Saturn and Neptune. But look at this now. Saturn and Neptune are at the same degree for a while, till Saturn moves back to the 0 degree. This is another point where they are very close together, traveling together. They will not meet exactly again till early next year at 0 Aries. But now they are at this 1 degree mark together since Neptune stepped back off the 2 degree mark onto the 1 degree mark. So they're really speaking to each other. This dissolution of old structures and really building structure with flow, or flow within structure, or however you want to express it. Both planets will move back into Pisces later and then come and meet at 0 Aries early next year. But right now, Venus comes up and squares both of them at this 1 degree mark. So this is later on August the 1st. And so Venus will square Saturn early in the morning on August the 1st-ish, fairly early in the morning Eastern time again, and will square Neptune late afternoon. So, but very close together really. So Venus is squaring both of these and is newly in Cancer. This is a cardinal square. And this is tuning in again to our relationships, to our self-care, to how we structure our lives and our families' lives, and how we take care of each other and how we think about that. But starting with putting your own oxygen mask on first. Okay. Gosh. Okay, on to the 2nd, the last day of the week. I promise you that if my software is not fixed by next week, I will go and fire up my old PC laptop and get my other software and create a list from that, because hopefully that one's working better. So on to the last day of the week, August the 2nd. Can you believe we're going to be in August already? And I promise August has got some really juicy, nice aspects, a couple in particular. But anyway, we start with that moon finishing up in Scorpio still for for all the day, for all of August the 2nd. And so the moon will move into Sagittarius pretty early on Sunday, August the 3rd, but we'll look at that next week. And so the moon will activate that Juno Pallas Athena square. So, remember, she is the activator. And then the moon will come up and square Chariklo and make a trine to Nessus. So Chariklo is the space holder, the cosmic doula. Nessus is the buck stops here, and he's been revealing all the abuses of power and the intergenerational abuses of power. I kind of like that these two are working together. And again, all these aspects are pushing us towards being the healers and healing the world we live in. It looks like people have got this power and they've got it locked up, but we are seeing things for how they really are. And I think we had to see that before we could change. I'm even thinking of, how I'm listening now to the amazing Tad Sturmer, TAD STOERMER. He's a historian of the revolution and resistance, and he is talking about how the founders intentionally created the Constitution to protect their interests as white males with slaves and all the money. And he's right. You go listen to him. So, but we had to see it before we could do anything to change it, right? And people are starting to wake up. So onto the cards. And again, sorry, it's a little bit all over the place, but you know. So first we get the Priestess of Cups. Cups are water, that's emotion. This is I am spiraling, but I want to give you the quotes first of all. Let me keep my mind on what matters, which is my work, which is mostly standing still and learning to be astonished. That's the wonderful Mary Oliver. And there's another one by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. The spiral in a snail's shell is the same mathematically as the spiral in the Milky Way galaxy. And it's also the same mathematically as the spirals in our DNA. It's also the same ratio that you'll find in a very basic music that transcends cultures all over the world. The secret, it's also a symbol of Venus. So the the message from the book on this, from this wonderful deck, is that the spiral priestess holds the waters of kindness, intuition, art, and creativity. She's a dreamy, romantic soul who has the habit of putting things to one side so she can immerse herself in the beauty and harmony of nature. She meditates a lot and holds a depth which is often unnoticed. Her flowing, watery energy can be seen as flimsiness by those who misunderstand her. She's very talented and highly skilled, and it's hard not to love her. For those who see her, she will gaze into the balmy waters of life and bring something to the surface for them to contemplate on. She will remind you that when we all pass through the same cycles in a spiral until we remember that a spiral pathway is never closed and will always give us greater freedom and growth to move up and down to find different solutions and understandings. Growth is a spiral process. So take from that what it means for you, but what it speaks to me as the first card for the week is to spend some time in the midst of all this fire and air and swirl of energies as the moon starts to gain light, to go into that stillness place and learning to be astonished kind of place of Mary Oliver. Okay. Four of Threads is the second card. I always kind of think of this as about midweek. Lovely cards. I am celebrating. This is fours are always a bit of stability. Okay, and this is the Garden of the Heart card, and this is your red thread of love. Wear your red thread. I actually need to replace mine because it's all faded. So quotes again. To feel the love of people whom we love is a fire that feeds our life. That's by Pablo Neruda. The other quote is Guru Mai Chidvilasananda. I don't know if I said the name right. Only love can penetrate all your karmas and resistances and set your heart on fire with the awareness of its true nature. I don't think I need to read anything wrong. I will just read the kind of summation at the end. So this is a message telling you about celebrating love, really, and memories and family and friends or those that you love and coming into them. And that's very Venus in Cancer, by the way, which we saw happens middle of the week. End of the week. Goddess of Cups, Ariadne of the Labyrinth. Let's go and read you the book of this one. Okay, Goddess of Cups. I know I was doing these scripts that tried to sum it up, but it was getting harder to do that because there's so much, and there's something to me about tuning in like this. Anyway, Goddess of Cups, I am empowered. Lovely cards. Again, I'm just going to read you the quotes. This is from Christine Downing, Goddess. Ariadne is no longer the anima who waits outside the labyrinth while another enters. She means soul in the sense of what is at the center of the labyrinth, what is at the center of the self. Ariadne means soul, center, the goddess, what I call she. Could also be seen as the Holy Grail, the sacred feminine that is within each of us. Yeah, all of these things come spiral into that center. Okay. To ask, and then we have another quote from the same book, Christine Downing, the goddess. To ask who Ariadne is, to follow the thread all the way to the end, lead us to the center of a labyrinth, and at that center we find Ariadne herself. In the beginning, there is Ariadne, a goddess complete in herself, androgynous and self-perpetuating, creating out of her own being with no need of another. It's much nicer week ahead, I have to say, but I do think with that cazimi and some of the fire and air, the news cycle will seem really chaotic, but much more is coming to light. You need to spiral into your center, okay, and do your self-care. Much love you. See you next week.